Hello guys, my name is Claire Juttet. I'm a French painter based in Paris, and I'm super happy today to share with you a few words on who I am and my paintings. And we can start with my background. I think my childhood has had a huge impact on my art. Growing up in Lyon, I was a joyful, curious kid, always making up stories and excited to meet new people. Pretty early on, I developed this need to capture moments and keep them safe. I'd film everything with my dad's camcorder, from vacations to completely random moments, like that time I went with him to the garage to test drive a new car. I also kept an enormous box filled with memories. My very first shoe, a tin full of baby teeth, and all those little cards or stickers teachers would hand out to reward good behavior at school. Collecting all these pieces of my life made me deeply nostalgic and turned me into someone who constantly draws inspiration from past events or lived scenes when composing my paintings. But as I grew older, that joyful, outgoing child slowly disappeared. Middle school was a turning point. I became really introverted and shy because I constantly felt out of place. I found other kids cruel, and that feeling of not fitting in made me shut down completely. That's when I discovered YouTube vlogs. I was looking for ways to feel better through makeup tutorials or just by immersing myself in the lives of girls my age. Watching them share their routine and daily lives was comforting. What struck me was how these seemingly superficial moments actually held something deeper, this constant search for identity, confidence, and connection. I think that's why I'm so drawn to portraying women in my paintings. As a child, I was obsessed with this ideal of a strong, independent, feminine woman, this future version of myself who could do anything she wanted. It was almost a game. I'd run away from my mum just to watch her try to chase me in heels, already imagining myself as this free, powerful woman. It's funny because in a way, that's still the woman I'm painting today. And I think she resembles me precisely because she's been part of me all along. One of my earliest influences was the street artist Mystique. Her bold tags were all over my neighborhood in the 13th arrondissement of Paris, where I lived while studying social sciences. I've always been marked by her work, this image of a sexy brunette paired with a sharp punchline underneath. She was impertinent, seductive, and powerful, everything I wished to embody as a younger girl. Later on, I discovered the work of French painter Inès Jovial, whose woman resonated with me even more deeply. In her paintings, you can feel their vulnerability. Some of them even have a single tear rolling down their cheek. It's something I try to reflect in my own paintings. I want viewers to feel close to the characters, to wonder what's going on behind their surface, and to sense that tension between fragility and strength. I'm also fascinated by works where women are fully the subject, shown in intimate, close-up settings. That's something I find in the work of Nikizimov. His paintings often create a voyeuristic feeling, as if you were stepping too close to a private moment. The women are so present and exposed that it blurs the line between tenderness and discomfort. That's where color becomes essential to me. It helps shape the emotional atmosphere of these scenes. I'm particularly inspired by filmmakers like Pedro Almodovar, who uses bold, highly saturated colors to instantly bring life and intensity to everyday situations. His use of color gives weight and drama to the mundane, and that's something I try to capture in my own compositions as well. Finally, I'm also inspired by people in general. I observe them and collect ideas from fleeting, everyday moments. These scenes often become the starting points for my compositions, but I always channel them through the same female figure. She becomes a mirror, embodying both the people I observe and a part of myself, evolving through each painting. Right now, I'm mainly focusing on three things. First, I'm really working on deepening my universe, sketching a lot of compositions in my notebook, testing new color combinations, and just thinking about how to bring this world I have in mind more clearly into my paintings. It's a phase where I'm still exploring and refining how I want to tell stories visually. At the same time, I'm also starting to produce new paintings that are fully in line with that research. The idea is to put together a series that I could show either in a gallery or even in a space I would rent myself. For now, the theme I'm working on is really about the inner world, but I'll keep the details to myself until the paintings are ready. And on top of that, I'm also hoping to do an artist residency this summer, even if it's just for a few weeks, just to see what it would feel like to paint full-time and to fully step into that rhythm, because that's not the case for me yet. If I had to give my younger self an advice, I would tell her to stop looking for answers outside and start paying attention to that quiet gut feeling, the one that already knows what direction to take. I tell her to take a step back and really ask herself, what do I want deep down? Not what looks good on paper or what will please others. I'd also tell her to stop being so impressed by people who are actually just trapped in their own struggles, to stop giving so much space to people who drain her, and to start saying no, because saying no is sometimes the only way to protect yourself from ending up in situations where your boundaries disappear. I'd want her to care less about how people see her and more about who she allows in her life, to surround herself with people who lift her up and make her feel like she can fully be herself. I remember feeling like I was staring at myself in a mirror but seeing a stranger. That disconnection stayed with me for years, and even now it's still something I'm navigating. But that's the thing, I don't believe there's a final version of myself to find. It's more about learning to stay connected to that feeling, adjusting along the way, and trusting that I'll keep moving towards something that feels more aligned. Last summer, I started working on a second-hand globe I found. I was immediately drawn to it. It already had its own history, its own marks and scratches, and I liked the idea of giving it a new layer, a new story. At first, I felt a bit uncomfortable. It almost felt selfish to cover up the whole world, all the countries and borders, with my acrylic paint, like I was erasing something collective to make space for something personal. But once I let go of that hesitation, I really enjoyed the experience. What I loved most was the symbolism behind it. Painting on a globe felt like catching stars or ideas floating around me. It reminded me of Rick Rubin's concept in The Creative Act, where he described ideas as being everywhere, in the air, just waiting for someone to grab them and bring them to life. That image stuck with me throughout the project. I'm really happy with how it's turning out, and it opened up something new for me. It made me want to push further, to paint on other objects and explore what happens when you step away from the flat surface of a canvas. I almost always have something playing when I paint, but it really depends on my mood and on which stage of the painting I'm in. At the very beginning, when I'm sketching the composition with the pencil and building the structure, I need more focus, so I tend to work in silence or with something very soft in the background. But once I start adding color, working on gradients, blending, I can let sounds in and it actually helps spark ideas. That's when I listen to podcasts. I love interviews with inspiring people, whether they are entrepreneurs or creatives, like those on le podcast de Pauline Legnaud, a French podcast. I also love storytelling podcasts like the early episodes of Transfer from Slate, introduced by Charlotte Pudlowski's iconic voice. There's something intimate and soothing about them. Music is also a big part of my process, and I'm pretty eclectic. One day it might be techno or rap, another day it's classical music or bossa nova, depending on how I feel. And sometimes I let an Arte documentary play in the background, even if I'm only half listening while painting. At this stage, it becomes almost meditative. The slow, repetitive gestures mixed with sound help me stay in a flow and often lead to an unexpected ideas. Some of the best reactions I've had happened when I took my paintings out into the streets of Paris with my girlfriend, who helps me shoot photos and videos. I do it to capture visuals of my work in real-life settings, but every time I feel very exposed. There's always this fear that someone might damage the canvas, and I'm also very aware of people watching me. But it's in those moments, out in the open, away from Instagram and screens, that I've had the most spontaneous and genuine reactions. Without the barrier of a phone, people react immediately, and it creates a much more personal connection. One of the moments that stuck with me is when a little girl pointed at one of my paintings and told her mum, "The lady's painting is beautiful." It really stayed with me. There's this saying that kids always speak the truth, so hearing that from her felt extra special. I also noticed how people from all walks of life, older people, young adults, kids, often stop or turn their heads to look at my work. It warms my heart every time because it reminds me that even though my paintings come from something deeply personal, they can still create that universal spark and catch people's attention. What I really hope is that my paintings help people slow down and focus on what truly matters. I want them to step into a suspended moment, something simple, quiet, but full of presence. For me, it's about reminding people that the essential is already there, hidden in everyday moments we usually rush past. I want my work to act like a balm, bringing comfort or softness, even just for a fleeting instant. I also try to create a connection between the viewer and the woman in the painting, to make people wonder who is she, what is she feeling, and feel close to her as if they've entered her personal space. Visually, I like to keep my compositions simple. A bit like a writer who strips away unnecessary words, I try to remove anything that feels too much, leaving only what's essential to carry the emotion. Even though my colors are bold and vibrant, I want the whole scene to breathe and feel light without overwhelming the viewer. In the end, it's not about delivering a clear message. It's about offering a space where people can pause, reflect, and create their own emotional connection with the painting. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope it resonated with you. You can follow me on my Instagram account, Claire Juttet, and feel free to send me a message. Let's discuss. Have a nice day.